Men are good. Welcome. Today we're going to talk about inflation. No. Not that kind of inflation. We're going to talk about psychological inflation. When you think you're greater than you actually are. There's a wonderful book written on, or partly on this topic by Edgar, called Ego and Archetype, where he talks about the importance of inflation. It's a part of our growth cycle is to be inflated, then get deflated, and then grow. Inflated, deflated, grow. It's kind of a cycle that we go through. The problem is getting stuck in the inflated state and having it be way too great. That's when we get into trouble. And man, we've heard feminists complain about men being inflated for decades. What do they say? They say, oh, these men's egos are so huge. Oh, they're as big as Mount Everest. Oh, they think they can do anything. La, 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 la. And in this case, in some ways, the feminists have it right. Because guess what? Men have this stuff called testosterone. And they have this stuff called precarious manhood. Men live in this hierarchy all the time, where they need to appear to be doing okay. They need to appear to be independent. And this pushes a certain amount of inflation. Plus, they've got testosterone going through their veins, and testosterone says what? It says, you can do that. You can do that. You can do it. So he's thinking, I can do that. I can do that. And then when he fails, guess what? Testosterone says, oh, no, just try again. You can do it. It's got this resilience piece in it that says, try again, try again. So, guys not only have this precarious manhood thing where they're pushed to try and appear as though they're independent at all times, they also have this testosterone thing which pushes them to kind of feel like, yeah, I can do this. I got this handled. I got this. That's a typical masculine way to look at it. I got this. So I think men have been misjudged by feminists for a long time because of that, because that's just the way we're dealing with our hierarchy. And it's understandable. Guess what? Women live in a hierarchy too. It's called attractiveness. And guess what? Women do things to try and appear higher and higher in that hierarchy all the time, whether it's makeup or heels or certain dress. They're always trying to make believe, or not make believe, they're always trying to look as though they are more attractive than they know they are. So it's kind of the same thing, except nobody calls out the women for that. It's fine if she doesn't want to go out because she doesn't have her makeup on. Everyone understands that. But very few people understand that men will tend to have a certain amount of inflation because of testosterone and precarious manhood. Anyway, this whole inflation thing is crazy because, self-esteem itself is, I think, a mixed up idea. Because self-esteem, a lot of times, is based on whether you think you can do something or not, whether you think you're good at something, whether you think you're high up, or whether you think you're low and decrepit. It's like, it's based on that. And wait a minute, that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense with self-esteem because, someone might think they can do all kinds of things, but they can't. So it appears their self-esteem is, quote, high. But that's bullshit. The real self-esteem is how well you can gauge yourself, how well you know whether you can and cannot do something. That's esteem. That's knowing yourself. Know thyself, know thyself, know thyself. Trying to know yourself is the real esteem. It's the real maturity. Thinking you can do this and that it's not really an indicator of what we think of as self-esteem, or at least what I think of as self-esteem. So self-esteem gets thrown off by this inflation thing and the deflation thing. And also narcissism too. Men, I've scratched my head over and over again because the research on narcissism basically says men are more narcissistic than women. I thought, are you kidding me? That's just crazy. But the inflation thing may be why this is happening. Because if men think they can do something, they're going to appear narcissistic. They're going to appear as though they think they are greater, more inflated than they actually are. And that's my guess anyway, because, pure narcissism, I think, is more female-oriented. At least that's my perception of it. And I think there was at least one researcher said in the past 20 or 30 years, narcissism has increased. They call it this researcher called it the narcissism epidemic. And they noted that it's had a greater incline with women than with men. And we're going to talk about some of that in just a minute. But let's get back to inflation. I got way off the topic. Inflation, inflation, inflation. Children need to be inflated when they're little. Little kids, when they're 1.5, 2.5, they need someone to inflate them. They need someone to say, "Oh, that's wonderful that you can touch your wrist. Oh, good for you. Anything they do, oh, that's wonderful." It's like you're building them up. You're building a core inside that tells them, "I'm okay. I can do this." You know, that's part of what a good parent does. You build up the child when they're first around. You build up this core part of them that has a sense of capacity, has a sense of being able to do things. Now, the problem is, of course, that you need more than that. You need limits for the child. You need someone to say, okay, when they're 4, you need to say, nope, can't do that, can't do this, can't do that. Even at 2.5, you have to say, you can't do this and can't do that. But it's got to be paired with this part that really inflates them. I mean, we need to inflate children. It's a good thing for us to do that to a degree, and when we can also have loving limits that are set. They found that kids who have come from abused homes have a natural incapacity to do this kind of thing, to inflate their children in the same way other parents do who had that loving kindness to them when they were first born, when they were first children, the first 3-4 years. So it's a critical piece, this being able to do that for our children. It's very important. Of course, now with kids in daycare, parents get less chance to go out and do that. It breaks my heart. What can you say? The people who love them are far, far away. And we're getting off topic again. Anyway, the researchers are very aware of this whole thing we're talking about, this inflation thing. And they call it, what is it they call it? Overindulged children. Overindulged. It's kind of interesting, the research that they've done on it. They call it overindulgent, and they list 3 things that it's connected to. One is too much. They're given too much. Too many presents, too many toys, too many thises, too many that's. They're given. They're overindulged with things. They're given things. That's the first piece of overindulgence. The second is over-nurture. They're only told they're wonderful. You're the princess. You're the prince. You're the wonderful. You're the everything. They're over-nurtured, overindulged, over-nurtured. And the third piece is overindulged children grow up in what they call a soft structure, which translated means they don't tell these children to do anything. They don't have limits. They don't have chores. They don't have a schedule. In fact, when the child gets upset, everything stops. So everyone focuses on the child. Oh, we gotta do this, we gotta do that. So these 3 things build what they call an overly indulged child. One of the interesting things about this is that they also say that the overindulgence is really a function of the parent, not the child, which is interesting to think about. But they say it does have its drawbacks, because overly indulged children tend to be excessive, self-centered, obnoxious, and ill-tempered. How about that? Excessive, self-centered, immature behavior on the part of the child, says Clarke and Dawson. McIntosh says overindulgent behavior on the part of the parent leads to excessive self-centeredness. All kinds of things. They do special treatment and privileges. They get away with anything. Too many gifts. No one can criticize, and very few limits. No one can criticize. Remember in your family, the member of your family who nobody could criticize? Oh yeah, nobody can criticize them because, no, only positives for them, only inflation, no deflation. Of course, if we cut off the deflation, what are we cutting off? We're cutting off grief. And when you cut off grief, what happens? You stop up someone's development, because it's grief that helps us move into a new phase. The Persian poet Rumi said, grief is the garden of the heart. Grief is the garden of the heart. The heart doesn't grow without being hurt. and you've got to go through this. You've got to be inflated, then deflated, inflated, deflated. That's a part of growing. And if we only have one side of that, we're screwed. We're really screwed. Okay, so look at today's world. And what do you find? You find that we have more and more fatherlessness, right? And guess what? Think of those three things: too much nurturing, too much things, and soft structure. Does that sound like dad to you? No. In fact, fatherless homes obviously have those three things probably out of control, for a variety of reasons. Dads are the ones that come in and set the limits. And we know now that it's the limit setting that does what? It helps the child learn compassion. Compassion. Oh, God, they did this research. And guess what? In the past 20 or 30 years, the compassion of college students is now down 40% from what it was 30 or 40 years ago. I think it's related to fatherlessness, but it also is, I think, related to fatherlessness and this overindulgent piece. Ay, what a mess we're in. Okay, so the research says this is what happens to children as adults if they get overly indulged. Listen to this list. Hold on to your lug nuts. They need immediate gratification. They have poor self-control. They have an overblown sense of self-entitlement. They're ungrateful, have poor boundaries, are materialistic. They overspend and overeat, have goals of wealth, fame, and image, do not want meaningful relationships, are not interested in personal growth or making the community better, have not learned valuable adult life skills, are irresponsible, don't know what's enough, have difficulty giving up being the center of attention. Man, what a list. This is the list the researchers gave for the potential problems in later life when the overindulged child grows up. Wow, does that list sound familiar to you? In some ways it does to me. In some ways it does to me, because guess what? Here's the real rub. We've overindulged women and girls. We've pampered them in so many ways. We've inflated them. We've gotten it so now you can't criticize women and girls. You can't say one word, just like in the family, that one person that was, you couldn't say anything about. Now it's women and girls. You can't say one negative thing. If you do, you're a misogynist. Oh boy. We pamper women. We first, she said, search on pampered women. Go to DuckDuckGo. Don't use Google. Go to DuckDuckGo and search on pampered women. One of the first articles that comes up is this woman saying, I'm an independent and capable woman, but I still want to be pampered. Get the idea? This is ingrained in women. Yes, I'm independent, I'm stable, I'm capable, but no, I want to be pampered. What? Think about it. She wants to be pampered. And men pamper women terribly, and sometimes it's subtle and sometimes it's not, but think about it. In relationships, what happens? Women say, oh, I don't like Randy hanging around so much, so you give up Randy, right? Oh, I don't like that you go bowling all the time, so you give up bowling. Oh, I don't like so-and-so and such, and this and that, and before you know it, the guy's interests have narrowed down, and his friends have narrowed down. He's pampering her. He's giving her what she wants, and he's forgetting about what he wants. Boys and girls, that sucks. That sucks, but it just is one more indicator of how we pamper women. And there's so many different ways. We give women the children after divorce, right? And we give them the money to take care of them. It used to be that whoever had the money, that's the person who'd get the children, right? Which makes sense, because then they could take care of them. But now, no, we pamper women. We give the women the children, and we give them the money to take care of them out of the man's pocket. So he gets separated from his kids, plus he's got to pay for it. We pamper the women. We give women affirmative action. Just like these little kids who are spoiled Oh, we'll give them a special way to do things. We'll give her a trophy. Even though she came in third, she gets a trophy. Oh God. So we're doing the same thing with affirmative action, whether it's more scholarships or easier to get into schools or start a business. All kinds of laws have been made so that women are pampered. They get special treatment. I can't criticize. Special treatment, more scholarships, and we give women and girls the freedom from any criticism. You can't criticize them. It's the same thing. Can you see how they're pampered? And you see how being pampered leads to narcissism? It leads to overindulgence. When women entered the workplace, we changed the rules to make them comfortable. I mean, gosh, before women came into the workplace, I can remember I was involved in some jobs before women really started officially coming into the workplace. And remember, in 1950, I think, 25% of women were in the workplace. I mean, it's not like it went from 0 to 50. It went from 25 to 42 or something like that. Anyway, when I was in the workplace, we would Jones on each other, shut up over there, fuck you, yeah, fuck you too. And everyone would have a good time. It was all right, but we were pretty harsh on each other, and it was okay, it worked out. When women came into the workplace, that all stopped. Men couldn't be themselves anymore. They had to be this new thing that said, oh, don't say any words that might offend. Don't say any words that might get her upset. Treat her in a way that's, pamper her. The workplace has pampered women. Gosh, I wish they could just come into the workplace and just come into the workplace as it was. And just learn how to adapt to the workplace rather than have the workplace adapt to them. Pampered. Get the idea? We create laws that advantage women like sex assault, health care, and others. We give women more money for health care. We give them 7 national councils for women's health, and men still have none. We pamper women. We create safe spaces specifically for women and girls to avoid any negative comment, thought, or meme as if they're helpless. Safe spaces, oh my goodness. And today, safe spaces are what? Safe spaces are so no one can criticize. No negative comes in, no negative memes, no negative thoughts. Well, I'm a big proponent of safe spaces, but guess what? They got it exactly backwards. Because safe spaces in therapy and ritual have always been there to do what? The safe space is there so you can move into the trouble. You can move into the difficult to deal with. You can move into the pain and the trials and the trouble and the low self-esteem or whatever it is. You have a safe space in order to move into the crap. They're using a safe space to get out of the crap. It's crazy. It's crazy. But again, the safe space is to help them not have any negative around them. Pamper, 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 pamper. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Oh gosh, what else? We shield them from anything that might offend them. We create safe spaces. We isolate any discomfort, challenging or offensive. We give them less jail sentences. Not like 10% less or even 20% less, 62% less because they're women. We pamper them. It's crazy. We keep them out of dangerous workplaces. 93% of deaths in workplaces are men. Why? Because we pamper women to keep them out of dangerous jobs. Just like we pamper women to keep them out of war. All the millions of men who have died around the world in wars did so to pamper women, to make sure women did not have to go and do such as that. Circumcision's another one. We pamper women. We make sure that it's against the law to even touch their genitals with a scalpel when they're first born. Whereas boys, over 1 million little boys are genitally mutilated every year in the United States. We don't pamper the boys. We really should. I mean, that's not pampering. I mean, you can see this is abuse, But we make sure the girls don't have to put up with that abuse. We treat them very, very differently. Longevity. We make sure women live longer. We don't put money into men's health to try and help them live longer, Crazy. Let's see if I forgot anything. Oh, gosh, we give women total control over reproductive rights, We pamper them. Men, we give them nothing. Think about it. The guy and his wife, she's pregnant. And she says, I want to abort this baby. He says, let's have the baby. Let's have the baby. No, we're not having it. Now, is there any discussion after that? No. No. She's got total control. Her body, her choice. His wallet, her choice. So, I mean, again, we're pampering her. We're making sure she gets her needs met. You know, she gets control over whether to abort the child, whether... We won't get into that. Let's see what else. I think that's enough for now. You get the general idea. We have pampered women and girls and overindulged them by protecting them from any kind of offensive stuff, any kind of problem. And in doing so, we've increased their narcissism and decreased their compassion. And now today, women and girls really look like the list that we read before. Let's read that list again. Think about it now in terms of women and girls. Need immediate gratification, have poor self-control, have an overblown sense of entitlement, are ungrateful, have poor boundaries, are materialistic, overspend, overeat, obesity, have goals of wealth, fame, and image, do not want meaningful relationships, are not interested in personal growth or making the community better, have not learned valuable adult life skills, are irresponsible, don't know what is enough, have difficulty giving up being the center of attention. So I'll let you ponder that. You decide for yourself whether you've seen more of that from women in the last 20, 30, 40 years. Frankly, I think we need to put an end to this. And I was reading, one researcher was talking about, okay, how can you stop this thing? How can you stop this overindulgence? When the child is overindulged, how can you stop it? What they said was, you've got to start saying no in a loving manner. And that, folks, is exactly what we need to do. It's what our legislators need to do. They need to say no in a loving manner. And you, in your relationship with your spouse, your girlfriend, your whatever, you need to start saying no in a loving manner. It doesn't have to be, no, you asshole, shut up, bitch, no. No, not going to do that today. No, that's not the best thing. Set those limits. That's what the mature masculine is able to lay down the limits, able to lay down the boundary about what is good for everyone. And men are very good at that. Men are very good at intuitively knowing what is best for the group, what is best for the community, what's best for the nation. And I do not think women have that same capacity in the same way. At least that's the way I've seen things. And on that happy note, men are good, as are you. We'll see you.